What's up, guys? Saf here on SuperSaf Speaks, and welcome to episode number 16 of the podcast with myself, your host, SuperSaf.
And your co-host, Border Work, Thunder E.
Which one are you? Are you
I guess
E or
it's
you
both
Border
today.
Today's one of those days. There's been a lot going on. Apple event. We've had lots of new announcements. We've got AirTags. We've got a purple iPhone. We've got M1 powered iPad Pros. We've got M1 powered iMac. There's lots going on there. But as well as that, there's other news as well. We've got some leaks on the Galaxy Z Fold 3. So some information is now starting to pop up around that. Facebook is officially announced its Clubhouse clone, so we can see. I mean, it is pretty much a ripoff. And we also want to talk about software. There's been a lot of discussion about software online over the past week or so, where people have been talking about software updates and whether you should buy a product based on promises of future software updates or buy a feature or something. So there's going to be some discussion around there. Okay, so firstly, let's talk about Apple and the Apple event. It was exciting. I mean, I'm a fan of Apple events purely because of the way they're produced. I love the production and how they put everything together. And Tim Cook is now swole as well. If you guys watch the event, it looks like he has been working out over the lockdown period. So yeah. He's there showing his biceps, and there was a lot to unpack, right? So, yeah, firstly, there is actually there's going to be an update to Apple Podcasts, right? So, considering we are talking about a podcast, we'll touch on this briefly. So now, with the update, every show and episode is going to have a new page, which actually looks a lot better than it used to. There's going to be channels to be able to help find new shows. And there will also be Apple Podcast subscriptions, right? Now, I actually got an email about this because, obviously, we are an Apple Podcast. And it says, "Dear podcast creator, we are thrilled to share the following announcements and updates. Introducing Apple Podcast subscriptions. Starting today, creators in more than 170 countries and regions can offer premium subscriptions on Apple Podcasts, which will be accessible to listeners next month. Creators set the pricing for each subscription, which are built monthly by default, and define the benefits such as ad-free listening, early or exclusive access to new series, or access to additional or archival content. Creators can also offer annual billing and provide free trials and sample episodes." Okay, so we have a few elements here now. Don't worry, guys. We're not going to be putting a subscription model in here. We don't have ads on the podcast as it is. But with the popularity of podcasts, I can kind of see this becoming more of a thing, right? Because Apple has clearly seen the uptake, and a lot of creators are now really concentrating on podcasts, and this kind of gives them an opportunity to monetize those rather than just with the ads, and give people a bit of a Patreon / YouTube. What do you call it? YouTube. I don't even know what that feature's called. Not YouTube Red. That's it's the subscription model on YouTube. The super fans or whatever it's called.
Super
right?
fans
anyway.
And all that stuff.
OnlyFans, whatever you want to call it, right? So basically, you're going to be able to get exclusive access. What do you think about it, E?
I mean, look, I have two minds about it, but it's a good thing. It's something I think Apple would have done anyway. But at least for me, it's if you don't want to listen to ads, that's the best benefit there. So it's something you can set up tiers of saying, hey, look, if you love our podcast, $2.99, then there's no ads. And then if you want to add in an extra level and say $5.99, we'll give you get access to the behind the scenes or the after hours, section of the podcast where Saf and I kind of do this. We always talk all the time, so we could also include it as a package. So things like that, which is cool. It's a nice way to jump up revenue, but also for both Apple and podcast creator.
Oh yeah, I wonder how much of a cut Apple's going to be taking. That's not, well, I can't see that information as yet, but we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, it'd probably be industry standard, which is currently 45 to 50% for all creator platforms, so to speak. So,
really, even for payments? Not for payments. That's like for ads.
Sorry. That I don't know. Sorry, I was thinking of it as YouTube completely. My bad. Payments, they might just do the 30. They might do the 30%, which they do anyway.
I wonder, because it's going straight to the creator. Like, the way I'm kind of saying it is, if I'm a listener and I'm like 30% is going to go to Apple, I think it's going to be a different model. It's going to be, I think usually they take something like 10%, which is reasonable on other platforms like Patreon and stuff. But I don't know. I've never really set something.
Patreon
like
takes the less. YouTube takes a lot more, because I've seen a lot of people on YouTube say, "Here's my PayPal." Pay me through PayPal.
Yeah.
They actually set that up and they put the link and say, "Hey, look, just donate there. It will show up." They're looking at their phone, because YouTube takes more. I'd put it that way.
Now, moving on, we have AirTags, finally. These have been rumored for some time. And just to give you a top-level rundown of all of the features of AirTags, they are going to be part of the Find My network. They'll use the U1 chip to be able to track them down. IP67, there's a built-in speaker so you can get it to beep. Precision finding, as you've got with Find My network. You've got over a year of battery life. The battery is user replaceable, and you can ignore unwanted tracking alerts and things like that. $29 each, or a 4-pack is for $99. You can pre-order on the 23rd of April, and they arrive on the 30th of April. Okay, so I mean, we've used Samsung Smart Tags as well, which are part of the Samsung ecosystem, but these are now part of the Apple ecosystem, and I really do like the Find My feature. I know you're not a heavy Apple user, but have you ever used the Find My feature?
Yeah, I have. I used it recently because I thought I left my iPhone in my Uber. It is accurate. It wasn't as accurate as I hoped it would be, but it was accurate enough to tell me where it is. But I mean, I think, just Find My features, especially on iOS devices, Apple's always done a good job year after year trying to make it, just more proficient for Apple users.
Yeah, so it seems, I think it's going to be very popular. I mean, people, I have a Samsung Smart Tag on my keys right now. So if I do need to find them, thankfully I've not lost them as yet, but if I was to. But I mean, if you want to put it on your luggage, for example, and in case you lose your luggage, you can track that down. There's lots of applications for it. And there's definitely
you can track your husband. Sorry, continue.
Your husband, your wife. Singala can track his many wives, so he can have one on each of his wives, so then he knows where they are at all times.
Singala does not do such things. Just putting it out there publicly.
But yeah, so I mean, I can see it, especially the pricing, because it's not bad. I mean, $29.
No, I mean,
for 100.
It's solid. It is solid. I mean, again, it's Apple looking at a sector of their business that they knew that they should have had. And, who was the first? Tile was the first company for it. And Tile's had this for a while. And, it's just one of those things where, Apple is closing the ecosystem. And I have a thought process, which I'll share later on because it covers some of the other products. But Apple is trying to close the ecosystem even more to really keep you feel safe within the ecosystem as a whole. So it's a great product, great pricing. And it's easy to pick up. Again, that's the easy part. It's easy to pick up as an Apple user to just get some. You've got a bunch of kids. You can actually have the tags with either their school bags or something like that. Your keys, and boom, you're good.
So this just made me think, because one of my old neighbors, he used to have lots of cats, right? And he used to always lose his cats. So he's come over and he's put these missing signs everywhere. And I'm like, have you ever considered putting on their collar one of these? And he's like, oh, I never. And I was like, but this is the thing, you mentioned Tile. Tile exists and has existed for a long time. The problem is, for the general user, it's just like, what is Tile kind of a thing? It's not as accessible. Whereas now that you have AirTag for Apple, if you're an Apple user and you have an iPhone, boom, easy. You know what I mean? You don't even have to think about it. It's like, I'm going to go buy these. I'm going to put them on my pet's collar. If they do run off somewhere, and I need to find them, then I can go ahead and track them down, right? And it's easy to do that instead of putting loads of missing signs up that, like, that poor chap, like, I wonder if he's ever listening. It's just like, he's ordering more. It's like, have you seen my cat? I'm like, dude, they keep running away, man. It's like, you need to put something on them. But yeah, I think it's going to be very, very successful, especially at that price point. I think everybody's going to pick it up in the Apple ecosystem. Now, we also have a purple iPhone. Now, this isn't huge news. It's obviously just a different color. It's going to be available on the iPhone 12 as well as the iPhone 12 mini. Pricing, everything is going to be exactly the same. And you can pre-order on the 23rd of April. They will arrive on the 30th of April. It's a new color. I mean, I don't think it's going to be that much of a big deal as previously when you had like the first product red on, I believe, the iPhone 7A, I think it was. And that was like a huge thing because you had the very sort of, standard colors, shall we say. You had the silver, space gray, and the gold, and then boom, they come in with this very bright red. But I think with the iPhone 12 series, you already have quite a few different colors. You've got the green, you've got the you've got the red, you've got the black, you've got the white. There's already a few options there. It just gives you a new option there. Not huge news, but if you wanted a purple iPhone, now you can get one.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think it's huge news. I think it's a way to boost sales. This is me and my logic all around, just because I think the mini, we all know, hasn't sold well. So I think it's a nice way to get people's interest back into that device if you're looking to pick up an iPhone, because there's a new color and it's also a color that Apple hasn't done in a while. So I think, it's a nice way to...
I'm trying to remember if they did it for the iPhone 11 or not. I can't remember if they did it for the iPhone 11 purple.
They didn't do it. Yeah, this was shocking because even I myself was like, okay, there's purple now.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's a new color of the iPhone. You know what? I might just bring it in just to kind of do a quick unboxing or something, just to kind of see the color compared to the others. So I'll see. I might do something like that. So stay tuned on social media, on Instagram and TikTok mostly. Maybe on Shorts as well, on YouTube Shorts. But by the way, there is a new channel, SuperSaf Shorts. If you are interested in short form content on YouTube, check that out. Make sure you do. Shameless plug there. Okay, all right. Now we get to some more of the juicy stuff. So then there's the Apple TV 4K. Now this is actually now powered by the A12 Bionic chip. So this is we've had on a previous iPhone. It was not it's the A14, A13, A12. So that's going back to, what's the A12? Which one was it? Was it the 10S, right? I think it was the 10S. Anyway,
I think you're right.
It supports 4K high frame rate HDR. We've got a new Siri remote, Wi-Fi 6. Now, the base starts at 32 gigabytes, and that's for $179. Then you can get double the storage for just $20 more, which kind of makes sense to go for, just $20 more. 64 gigabytes, $199. Pre-order 30th of April, and it will be available in the second half of May. Now, it's got one really cool feature that I thought, and that is being able to color balance your TV using your iPhone. So the way this works is you hold up your iPhone and it uses the gyroscope and the accelerometer and the sensors on your iPhone to measure the color of your TV. And then the Apple TV will output color to compensate to give you the best color accurate viewing on your TV. Whatever your TV is set to, it doesn't really matter because it's the Apple TV that's actually doing that. And that for me was the coolest feature. What's your? I know you've got some opinions on Apple TV, so let me hear those.
Not worth it.
Is that it? Is that it? You're not going to say anything else?
No, it's absolutely not worth it. So, and I'm not hating Apple TV itself. I think the whole genre of those little mini TV boxes, absolutely not worth it. I know what Apple is trying to do with Apple TV. Just because I was in a Spaces room with somebody who has some really good knowledge within the Apple space, because he's been working in tech for such a long time, and some of the things he mentioned actually have come to fruition, where he talked about using it to color balance your TV. He talked about also using it for their future AR and VR headset. Because of also combining that with the AirPods Max, audio, visual, as well as also that home setup. And the other thing he also mentioned was watching sports. And I didn't get it then until they just mentioned today high frame rate, which has nothing to do with watching movies. You never watch movies more past 24 frames per second. This is for sports, where it makes a lot of sense. And, they talked about that there on the event. The other thing for me is that Apple TV, Chromecast, or Roku and all that is literally obsolete when you buy a new TV. It's just not worth it.
So that's the asterisk there, is when you buy a new TV, right? So if you've got
a new TV... If you've had a TV from 2016 till now, it's not worth it.
So even 2016, but I mean, some of the early models, I mean, I'd say in the last couple of years, you've got much better, on TV apps and everything that just work.
That stuff, yeah.
But, if you've got a new TV, but this is the thing, I think, the problem we have is we kind of base a lot of things on our usage, right? I know a lot of people who have TVs from 2013, 2014, because how often do you update your TV? You tell me. Like, when LCD
TV
TVs
update
and
is every 3 years, according to the TV Association. The reason I know is because they actually, I get TV breakdowns I know it's geeky, every other week.
Hey, well,
it's about
that's
three to 5 years. 3 to 5 years is
okay.
5 years is the max, and then 3 is the min. No, I do see it and I do agree. I think what it is though is that Apple is trying to push something that it's not connecting well. The reason I say that is because Apple TV has no foothold within that market itself. Roku is the clear leader by a huge margin. But again, I like all the features. I just kind of just look at it as being, it doesn't matter, even if you're color balancing an older TV, especially with HDR, it does not look right. That's also the other weird part about it. People don't realize, because then you start seeing weird colors and going, because HDR is pushing that Rec 2020 a higher color range, and your TV can only do so much in range. So it starts looking off. That's why for me, it's kind of like, it's cool, but
yeah. I mean, there's also Apple Arcade. So, if you want to game on your TV as well. So they kind of push, I guess there's an element of that as well there, right?
Yeah.
So for people who want to do the casual sort of gaming with Apple Arcade and they want to do that on their TV, then you've got your Apple TV for that as well. We'll see. I mean, I've never really owned an Apple TV before, so it's not something that's, hugely appealing to me. And, pretty much all my TVs have all those smart features already pre-installed. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. Plus, again, all the newer TVs have Apple TV built in. Apple TV.
Exactly.
The app. Exactly. So, which is why my mind is like, it's okay.
We'll see. Okay. Now, I think the big guns are the next two. So, we've got the new iMac, which is M1 powered, as well as the iPad. So, let's initially start off with the iMac, right? So, powered by the M1 chip, and that enables it to be very, very slim, 11.5 millimeters thin, all across 24-inch 4.5K Retina display. You've got 7 very funky color options. I think the only one that's kind of, normal is the silver one. We've got a big update for the camera. It's a 1080p FaceTime HD camera. They've said it's the best camera on a Mac. We've got the best mics in a Mac, 6 speakers with Dolby Atmos, up to 4 USB-C ports. 2 of those can be Thunderbolt. We've got a magnetic power cable, which is pretty cool because it just snaps on. I quite like that. And then you can also get a Touch ID wireless keyboard. So that has a Touch ID built in, completely wireless. Prices start from $1,299. You can pre-order from the 30th of April. They will be coming in the second half of May. Now, I want to say initially that, man, looking at how small these are and how thin these are, I know design is subjective and a few people are saying, whoa, those look ugly. But I kind of like the minimal look of these. It's almost like a big iPad on a stand. It's so 11.5 millimeters is very thin for a computer, like a fully fledged, M1 computer that you can use. Yes, there's a bottom bezel, but that's where all of the the processor and the fans and everything are. So that bottom section, fair enough. There is that that chin, shall we say? But yeah, man, like I can see these being picked up. The colors are a bit too funky for my liking. I mean, I wouldn't want something that bright But never know what the people. I just joked on Twitter that Dbrand are probably rubbing their hands, thinking, okay, this gives us a really good opportunity to make skins for this. If you want something a bit more muted, because I would have liked to have had a space gray, right? Because generally, the bezels on a device should be blacked out, so then they kind of get lost in the background. But I don't know. I'm kind of like I'm not sure about this whole colorful tactic, but I think the hardware is very impressive, and it just goes to show how Apple is going all out on the whole M1 ecosystem.
Oh yeah, so first off, Apple has won this year on computing. Let's just call it what it is. Other than high-end gaming computing, which AMD is winning that battle, but Apple's won that. I think second, when you're talking about the color, when you started talking about it, I realized it's for the home user, because the home computing user has changed from 2019. 2019 laptops were king. Right? We wanted to get more portable, move around. Everyone was trying to get more power into the laptop, which Apple finally did, but they didn't really redesign the MacBook. Now you're working from home, or your kids are schooling from home. We know that we're entering a world where there's a hybrid. We're going to be hybriding in some fashion. So having something that matches your style, or you just like the color, is good for everyone.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
And then but when it comes to design, I like the design. I think that thin frame look, again, reminds you of the iPad on the floating, the floating keyboard stand that you have with the iPad. It looks like that. I don't like that bezel chin, because I don't think it should be there. I think you could have redesigned it in different ways to do that. That's just me, because it throws me off. It's always annoying, because when you see it on the side and the back, it looks so nice. Then you come around the front, you're like, whoo, girl, come on. So it's a little bit of that. I will say, though, what I am interested to see and I'm excited about are the microphones and the speakers, because of the new design, there's enough space to put 6 speakers in there, and then you've got, Apple has really done good jobs with their microphones all the time. So hearing the microphones on there and being able to use it, I think those are the kind of little things I like. I do like the keyboard with the Touch ID. I'm glad they are joining. They've come to the Windows world of having that kind of security logging, which is just easy and simple. It fits the Apple monkey of just easy connection and easy transition between one device or another. But I mean, we were expecting this to some degree, and we like what we saw in there. And I mean, honestly, I think a lot of people are just going to enjoy it and get to experience M1 a different way. And I think this is probably the true entrance of M1. With the MacBook 13, that was just for us to make sure that we know that M1 works. This is now the public going, oh, this is the new Mac, because it looks new, right? It looks new, it looks fresh, it looks
it's that visual. It's that visual cue, isn't it? When you see something that's completely redesigned, then it's just like, because most people don't want to get into specifics of anything technical. They see a new product, it looks new, it's fresh, and it's got the new components, right? But I think it's going to sell very well, and the emphasis that they had on the audio and the video, because finally 1080p. I mean, we've been asking that for forever. But then they also talked a lot about the ISP and how it works to give you the best video quality possible. And again, this is going to the era of COVID, where we are doing calls over Zoom and Teams and whatnot.
You're doing classes, school, all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, my nephews have been on like Zoom calls for. It's funny because they figured out that they're only a small square for the teacher, seeing everybody else, right? So they know they can they know they can get away with a lot more. So it's hilarious what they will do and try to get away with. But yeah, it is a different world, and obviously I think the new iMacs fit that new world really, really well. And I mean, as I said, I can get over the chin. What I would have liked would be black bezels and a sort of more stealthy looking darker model, which I think a lot of people would have enjoyed.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. But I think they hit the nail on the head. The only thing I didn't like was the lack of an SD card port. And I mean, the Ethernet port within the power brick is really cool. It's something that we've seen from other manufacturers, so I do like that. I just wish there was an SD card port. I mean, that's pretty much it. Other than that, I think it's fine.
I mean, I think it's funny whenever I'm kind of talking to any computer manufacturer, I'm always like SD card, SD card. But then I kind of think to myself, how many other people use that on a regular basis, right? So like a general family user, are they going to be using an SD card slot much? You know, I mean, on the MacBook Pro, 100%, right? That's something that I think is a given. And if you are a pro user, chances are you'll need an SD card, right? But for your general user, maybe it's not needed as much. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I hear, but I was with the argument. I would just go, don't deprive the user because you're selling an accessory. Deprive the user if they're not using it at all. That's where my balance is. It's like, look, if you realize that it's only 20% of the audience that uses it, sure, yeah, we face away. But if it's something where you're gonna make money off accessories, which we know they do quite well, then it's a whole different case entirely.
There's a bunch of accessories available. Okay, now, this is, I think, the most interesting one for me from the Apple event, and that is the M1 powered iPad Pro. So it's going to be available in two versions as always. There's an 11-inch with a liquid retina display. There's a 12.9-inch with a liquid retina XDR display. We'll come to this. 6.4 millimeters thin. We've got a primary as well as an ultra-wide as well as a LiDAR sensor on the cameras. There's a 12 megapixel ultra-wide selfie camera now, which has the ability to kind of track you around when you are
focusing.
So there's they're calling it center stage. We've got 5G support now on the cellular versions, USB Type-C with Thunderbolt now, up to 2 terabytes of storage, up to 16 gigabytes of RAM. The 11-inch version is going to be available from $799. The 12.9-inch is going to be from $1,100, and they will be coming in the second half of May. Okay, so there's a few things here. Firstly, that the display thing is what kind of like I was like, whoa. Okay, so we've got the XDR display from Apple, which is $5,000 or so, right? And that's something that a lot of pro users have liked, because when you're looking at pro displays to edit video and things like that, they go into tens of thousands.
It's like $10,000. Yeah.
Yeah. So now they've got this XDR display technology, which is using mini LEDs, like loads of these. This is only in the 12.9-inch version, by the way, FYI. And you have that level of display with a peak brightness of 1600 nits, okay? 1,000,000 to 1 contrast ratio, very color accurate display. I mean, this is now going, because from a performance standpoint, let me just say that I've been using iPad Pros for the past 3 years. I could still use my 3-year-old iPad Pro, and it was from 2018, right? And it would still perform really, really well, whatever I throw at it, okay? Yeah. So I think that had the A12X maybe, I can't remember which one it had, right? And it was super fast anyway, right? So I'm like thinking, okay, now you put in the M1, which pretty much brings it to, essentially brings it to the same standard as the MacBook Air, right? It wouldn't put it to the same standard as the MacBook Pro, because the MacBook Pro has a much better cooling system, so obviously that's going to give you better sustained performance, right? But having an M1 chip inside an iPad Pro with an XDR display kind of just makes this, I mean, you're definitely going for the pro users, and the pro name gets thrown around quite a bit, but this kind of is almost justified.
I was impressed with the display. Mini LED is great. I'm reviewing a Samsung Neo QLED, which is using the same tech in there, and that TV costs $2,600. This is $1,000. That's just a TV. This is, of course, an iPad with more functionality. This is why I said Apple has won computing this year, because the M1 is in the iPad. We can justify the M1 in a MacBook, in an iMac, but it's in the iPad. So the full power that you get computing wise in those devices, you're getting in the iPad. Now, Apple, to me, this is truly what Apple wants to. Apple wants to blur the lines. They truly want to make it very blurred, where any device computing wise, you go from the iPad Pro or the MacBook Air or the MacBook, you are getting the same performance, aka they're making a computing ecosystem. Really, they're trying to make it feel like it doesn't matter what you pick one. Now it's all about what is your preference to work with, more than anything else. So if you're always on the go, or you're like in a movie set, or you're an artist for something, then the iPad is probably better for you. But if you are maybe the editor on that set and you're editing video, then maybe it's the MacBook for you, because you need a keyboard and a mouse and all that stuff. So they're really doing that there.
So here's the thing, you just mentioned the video thing, because one of the things that I saw quite a few people talking about on Twitter was, where is Final Cut on the iPad, right? Because I think for a lot of users, as soon as
you've got... It's
coming in June. Where did you get this from?
Think of the timing. Just do the math, right? They just announced it. It coming later half of May. When is WWDC?
Very good point. Very good point. Because, I mean, that's the only thing that's missing. Because, okay, so being an iPad Pro user, I mean, for me, the use for it mainly was, especially when I was traveling, right? Because it's so light and the battery life is so good. I can just throw it in my bag and, like, instead of carrying around a big laptop, especially if you're out and about, right? And then when they introduced Photoshop and the fact that you can just put in USB Type-C, so you can easily get photos from a memory card and you can start editing in Lightroom, etc. It just made it so much more of a useful pro tool, right? And I actually know a few people, especially with the precision of the Apple Pencil. Okay, so now once you've got the Apple Pencil, you're not going to get the same experience on a laptop, right? It's just having that canvas to pen interaction directly is something that I know a lot of creators absolutely love, right? Now, if you can bring Final Cut onto the iPad Pro, because now it's fully capable, right? With the M1, it's got the same performance, right? Okay, obviously not sustained performance, right? But it has the same performance as some of the MacBooks. So as soon as you bring that, for a lot of users, they will just buy the iPad Pro, because the iPad Pro does everything that they need. Right, you've got iPad OS now, which has come a long way compared to what we had. Initially with the iPad, it was an extended version of the iPhone, right? Stretch, which was just not usable. Then you've got iPad OS, which is kind of like a hybrid. As soon as you bring Final Cut, I think that will change the game for a lot of users, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're gonna see. I know we're not gonna have a lot of events this year, but moving forward, when we go to events and things like that, and I know, look, my editor Daniel has switched to Final Cut to edit, because Adobe's just, that's a whole nother topic entirely. But we're currently editing all my videos off his MacBook 13 Pro, right? And it's connected to a monitor. But I know, if because of this, when we go to events or when we travel, we're just going with an iPad, and as long as if it runs Final Cut, that's the way to go. Now the file system still needs to be improved in my mind. And I'll mention this that Snazzy mentioned on Twitter, and he said Apple failed in putting a second USB port in this device, and I actually agree with him on there, just because of how much ports are so important for Pro. Because if they showed people using it on set, the little video had people on set, had people using it as a viewfinder for a camera. I'm like, if I'm doing all that, I can't be just doing dongle life. It needs to have at least one extra, because then if I'm doing multiple dongles, that means I'm doing multiple things at the same time, and that's what Pro users do. So maybe that might happen, but again, they're blurring those lines and they're moving forward. Which begs the question for the next thing I mentioned. If we have the M1 in the MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, and we have the M1 in the iMac, and now the iPad, where else will we have the M1?
Are you saying that we might have the M1 in the new iPhones? Is that what you're implying?
That is what. Look, they can put that thing in anything, man. At this point, they can put it in sliced bread in a toaster.
The M1 power toaster from Apple. I don't know.
Honestly, I don't know. Think about it.
Could it be? Because I mean, I don't know. I just think an iPhone doesn't need an M1. Okay, so now with the iPad, I can still see the justification, especially with the XDR display, right? Because there are users who are using it to its full potential with Photoshop and things like that. You can't do that on an iPhone. Okay, so like for me personally, with the way my mind's computing it, is that it would be pointless on an iPhone, because a lot of what the M1 can do is just not going to be utilized at all on an iPhone. because it's a phone.
So hear me out, and this is why I think it's changing. So one of the things they've always mentioned with the M1, the stressed again today, is called system on a chip. They showed the graphic where normally on any it's a laptop or a PC or Mac or PC, doesn't matter. You have a processor here, you have a GPU here on one side, then you got memory on the other side. Now all that is on the chip itself. So the CPU, GPU, and memory are all on the same die. Now, I think they're going to carry system on the chip to the iPhone as well. But I think instead of us running a proper M1, like we see, we might run a downclock version of the M1. Like, cut it down to 4 cores. It's still more powerful than last year's chipset anyway. And I think that is what we're going to see, where it allows for them to now keep costs down. Remember, this is Tim Cook. This is Apple. The M1 is going everywhere. The M1 will be everywhere, which means you're putting your chips in the most amount of things, which means it costs you less to make it. And you're going to reach those margins. And that's, to me, makes a lot of sense with it, that the A series developed in the M1. And I think we're going to see, maybe not this year, but we're going to see that delineation now where the M1 is the master build. And then you just go like, we can strip down, we can strip up, we can strip down. Like, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, let's see. I'm a little skeptical about that coming on. Maybe in maybe next year or the year after. I don't think it's going to be on the iPhone 13.
Oh, we're going to get an M1 iPhone. Or it might just be called M 0.5.
You heard it here first. By the way, we're just completely speculating. This is not based on any evidential information whatsoever. So just take it with a grain. You know, the saying is take it with a grain of salt, right? No, take this with a whole bucket of salt, because it's just completely made up stuff that we're just saying as we're going along. Okay. Okay, moving on. Software updates. I want to talk about this. This is something in particular because there's been lots of talk about software updates. Now, there's been some talk around Teslas and the promise of full self-drive, but there's also been talk about software updates on smartphones, because we've reviewed a few smartphones recently and people are like, oh, wait for the software update to come and then review it, and it's just like, you absolute Anyway, I'm gonna go to this tweet from Marquez, which I thought made perfect sense. He said, never ever buy a tech product based on the promise of future software updates. Okay, now let's touch on the Tesla side of things, because that's where a lot of this conversation was coming on. Marquez, as well as Snazzy Q, Quinn, will be making a video on the Tesla software and a full self-drive situation going forward. But I want to quote a tweet from Quinn, and he said, "Fun fact: Tesla started accepting money for a promised full self-driving package in October 2016. It's April 2021 and no such feature set has been delivered. At many points in the past, they've included promises on the website and MVPA. How they've never been sued is beyond me." Okay, so let's initially talk about this Tesla situation. Now, the way I see it personally, there's this promise of full self-drive, but I didn't buy it. I didn't go for full self-drive because for me, I didn't think it was worth it, right? You are getting additional features right away. So you are getting things like, parking, and you're getting automatic lane change, which you don't get with the standard autopilot, and you're getting summon. So if you're in a car park and you want your car to come to you, you can also get that. So these are the things that are included. So yes, you're not getting the full self-drive with the dream, which I still think is quite a way away, but you're getting a few of these features. So I don't think it's necessarily that extreme, based on what Snazzy is saying, that it's just like, to be sued, because you're saying future updates are going to be coming, but this is what you're currently getting, right? And the way I see it is, for me, that wasn't worth it to spend whatever £7,000 or whatever it was here in the UK. I think it's almost $10,000 in the US now.
Yes,
it wasn't worth it for me. Yeah, so I didn't buy it, right? But if there was somebody who potentially bought it with the hope of getting it on a 2-year lease, for example, something else Quinn was saying, then, you've paid for that for your 2-year lease and you've not got that full end product that you were hoping for.
Yeah. I mean, no, it's true. I mean, look, this goes all the way back, even though I'm going to focus on Tesla, but it goes all the way back to Google. Google is one of the very first companies to give us this. Now, if in terms of software updates or even just beta. Remember, Gmail was beta for almost 10 years, by the way. And companies have now carried that idea of we can do a continuous testing period or beta period while still charging. And, some companies are better than others where, like you said, with Tesla, in a sense, we will give you features that are tied into it. Now, to Tesla's defense, self-driving cars will be hard to actually even implement in the US fully, especially after some of the things that happened in the past with a few accidents and also with regulations. The other half of self-driving cars, for instance, also has to do with, I kid you not, 5G and sensors on cars and roads. So a lot of people, I remember when this came up and I was like, this is great, but it would be great if we had sensors in traffic lights, in street lights, around the road, because that will aid the sensors in the car and the other vehicle, which allow for self-driving to actually work, because then it knows there's something here. I'm talking to this one is telling me this. So people like me and you will go, I'm not taking it because I know it's not there or it's not going to be there for a while.
Exactly.
But the regular customer won't, because again, it comes down to marketing and, the presentation of this is what we're giving. But we're also used to, as a public right now, dealing with software updates. We're used to, you buy a product, not forget a product, you buy a game. And your game is literally 60% ready. Not 90% where you're like, oh, okay. By the time I get to the end of the game, it's 60% ready before you get it up there.
So this is, I think it goes back to this thing, right? That my advice would be what Marquez said, is that if you think something's worth it at the time in terms of what it's offering, then sure, go ahead and buy it. Anything that comes as an addition is a bonus. Do not buy something with a hope that, this is going to be fixed in the future, because it may not. It may be fixed, it may not be fixed. And I want to bring this back to like smartphones, because one of the things that I always get, which annoys me, and if you are one of the people who comments like this, then you are wrong 100%. It's just like, wait for the software update and then compare it. Wait for the software update and then review it. Okay, so let me break this down. When manufacturers provide us with loan devices, whether that be smartphones or something else, if it is a beta, if it's running beta software, they will specifically tell us that, look, this is beta software, this is not public software, okay? And if that is the case, then I totally understand, and I will not review it based on a product that's a final product, because I know it's in beta, okay? However, as soon as the software version available is the version that consumers will be getting in their hands on the day of purchase, then I will review it, because that's what people are going to be experiencing when they get their device. Now, if you're a fanboy who has your head shoved up a brand's, area, then that's your own fault, because at the end of the day, software updates, yes, they may fix things, they may not. Sometimes we're waiting for months for software updates. We as tech reviewers have a responsibility to provide you with what we have at the time, right? Now, sure, it might be worth doing like a revisit, which is why a lot of the times I do like a 2-month later review. So, I'll give you a perfect example. The S21 Ultra, when I did lots of testing, the Exynos version did not have good battery life at the start. But then after a couple of software updates, it's actually improved quite a bit. Now, in my 2-month later review, I addressed that and I said, hey, look, now it's this. But if I was reviewing it, if I was doing a 2-week later review, my review wouldn't have been as good in terms of the battery life. Now, another element I also want to mention on that side of things is the fact that reviews actually bring those software updates. So I've had many situations where I've done a camera comparison and one camera maybe has not performed well in terms of stabilization, maybe in terms of autofocus. I've actually had that brand reach out to me personally and say, hey, can you share some of this footage with us so we can review it and improve it in the next software update? And guess what? A few weeks later, they've gone in and actually addressed those concerns that have been raised in that reviewer comparison, which would not have come to light and not have got so many people talking on Reddit and on comments, etc., had that review not been done. Okay? So I just want to bring it back that when it comes to software updates, we have to test it as it is at the time. Sure, if it improves, maybe somebody else will test it. Maybe we'll do a long-term test. But it's so important to be done at the time it's available to the consumer in that state.
Yeah, I mean, and just to add, remember this as well, Liz, for a lot of reviewers, not just us, you're given a time frame with the device. So especially even if you're a smaller reviewer, you're given like 2 weeks with a smartphone. So if the even if you wanted to wait, you had 2 weeks, which there might not be an update. The update might have come and still not do anything to the satisfaction that you like or you think it should be. Then it's just a waste of time. And what sometimes, just adding to some of the background and behind the scene things that happen. Look, there are times where, for instance, I myself don't usually put out a camera review immediately. But then if I know there's a camera update coming, I will wait. But then I wait. I'm going, well, I need to drop a video about this device pretty soon at some point, or else I'm just waiting 2 weeks, 3 weeks, who knows how long it is before an update hits. And again, it doesn't mean it will fix the things it wanted to fix. Prime example last year with the S20 Ultra. Everybody wanted a software update. I didn't, because the camera made me look really good. And when the update came, I started looking like I was, a white guy wearing black skin, because that's what it did. So again, you have to look at it. Saf is right. You have to look at it from the time it's available to go, because if we don't drop the information, the day of launch, or at least around that period when somebody's going to go buy the device, somebody's like, "Ooh, I can't wait to pick up the next Samsung or the next OnePlus. Let me check out some videos on it, because you can buy it right now. You can go click right now." We're doing a disservice. We're doing a huge disservice, because you're not helping that person judge properly to go, I'm not, and it doesn't mean we're dissuading them from buying it. It means that person might wait, and that, aka, it helps OnePlus improve the camera, and then they see another video from someone else saying, OnePlus 1 month camera review. I did the update, it worked. Look at the performance. You're like, oh, okay, now I can pick it up, or I get a better deal.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the S20 Ultra last year as well, and it had some focus hunting issues initially, right? And what they did is they released some updates, which did help, right? And it still didn't make it as good as some of the others, but it did definitely have a big impact. And not only that, but then the next device, the Note 20 Ultra, they put an infrared autofocus, laser autofocus sensor, right? So it actually helped progress the devices, right? Because of everybody talking about these issues that were experienced. And these software updates only came after those experiences were shared online and got people talking about it. So yeah, again, I want to re-emphasize this. Do not buy a product based on future software update promises, okay? If the software update is something that's not important to you, but you like the rest of the device, fair enough. But don't buy it solely because, I'm going to buy this now, and then, they're going to fix this later on. No, that's the wrong way to go about purchasing things. We just don't want you to waste your money, guys. That's all. Okay. That was like the rant period, which you just had to kind of get out, and I really wanted to kind of talk about that because it was annoying me, and there's only so much you can get over in a tweet. Okay, now we can move on to something that's quite exciting, and that is of course the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 3. My British peeps, I did say Z Fold, I didn't say Z Fold, so you don't have to disown me just yet. But anyway, okay, so we've had a few leaks. The first one has come from Ice Universe, who is a very reputable leaker, especially when it comes to Samsung devices. And he has said a friend of his has informed him that the Galaxy Z Fold 3 uses the Snapdragon 888 processor, which I think was kind of expected anyway. We pretty much knew that it was going to be using the latest. And it is about 13 grams lighter than the Z Fold 3. Now, the fact that it's lighter is quite interesting, and there is an article on GSM Arena which is speculating about why this may be. The weight reduction might come from the new armor frame. There are rumors that this will be the name of a titanium or carbon fiber frame, which are lighter than steel and even aluminium. I almost said aluminum. Okay, part of that, but also part of that could be because of the rumored smaller battery, which is supposed to be around, in total, 4,275 milliamps, down from 4,500, and a smaller external screen, 5.4 inches, down from the 6.23 inch display. So same sort of aspect ratio, right? Now, the Z Fold 3 is, however, expected to feature water resistance, which does add a bit of weight. Okay. Now, these will be the first foldable form factors, if that is the case, to be water resistant, right? Now, the Z Fold and the Z Flip are... Now, I said Z Flip. There you go. I messed it up. Sorry, guys. Z Flip are expected in July. Now, there was also some rumors about there not being a cutout for the S Pen on the Z Fold 3 as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So, a few things there. I mean, it looks promising regardless. We knew it's going to have the 888. That's just something that's given. Slightly lighter. Is that because of the slightly smaller battery? Is that because of the materials that they're using?
I think it's the titanium frame or carbon fiber frame that will make it lighter. The battery going from 45 to 42, no, that won't. I don't think that would shave off as much because it's not 500 milliamps down. It's what, 350, 250, something like that. So you're not looking at 250. Yeah. So you're not looking at a massive drop there. I think that titanium frame, if they go with titanium, that is quite impressive. If it can keep, it keeps it sturdy and also super light. But I was hoping that the smaller battery indicated that we're making more space for the S Pen, but it looks like that's not going to be the case, which is a bummer because that's the one reason I have not moved to the S21 Ultra.
Yeah, you went back to the Note, didn't you, for the S Pen?
Yeah, although I have a new case, which you guys can check out on my Shorts channel, Board Shorts, which I will post up and you guys can see.
Yeah. Okay. So definitely not a fan of the S Pen with the case.
It's hard. I mean, okay. What's your daily driver?
Oh, sorry. I just had a bright idea moment. Maybe the Z Fold 3 will not have an embedded S Pen, but like the S21 Ultra, it will have support for an S Pen though, that you can buy separately.
I think that's the case, but think about it. Think about the device that you're talking about. It opens, it folds. It just doesn't feel. I don't know. I mean, it just doesn't feel like it's a flow if your S Pen is somewhat separate. The problem with the, and again, cases on the Z Fold are bulky. So having a case with the S Pen slot is bulkier at that point. So maybe, I think that's where it becomes a little difficult.
Okay, we'll see. But I don't use the S Pen on the S21 Ultra. I'm still on the S21 Ultra. But I'm not using the S Pen on there. It's just the cases are just, I don't like them. They just make the device a lot more bulkier. They make it wider and less comfortable to use. I think for me personally, if it's an S Pen, it has to be a Note, right? And that's it. It needs to be embedded, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case with the Z Fold 3. But nevertheless, I'm still very excited about the device. The Samsung Z Fold, when they used to actually just call it the Fold, which they should still do, it was the first that really kind of kickstarted the foldable revolution, shall we say, right? And now all of the practical designs are copying the Z Fold, right? We had these funky designs from Huawei and, these concept designs from Xiaomi, etc. But now everybody's kind of settled on the foldable format, which is, the INI, shall we say.
Yeah. There's also word that, it might have an under-display camera on the Z Fold. And there is also talk of a triple fold Galaxy, which people are saying would be slightly thicker than the Z Fold 2, which is impressive. If it's only slightly thicker than the Z Fold 2, which will open up to a 10-inch tablet.
That'll be interesting. We'll see what happens with that. I don't know about the under-display camera as yet, because what we've seen so far, it's just not good, right? So I don't think Samsung would drop it on a device like the Fold as a new feature, something out of the blue. They would probably test it with other devices first as well, because it's just something that's so in its infancy right now that I just don't think it's going to be. It's just not ready, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I agree.
All right. Now, a final final thing that we're going to be talking about is the Facebook Clubhouse clone. So, Facebook has made a few announcements, and they've got a few new features that will be coming. So they released a statement. They've got a sound studio in your pocket. So this is like, again, voices is big here. They've also got a podcast format that's coming onto Facebook as well. So again, that whole audio experience podcast coming on. But then they've got the one that's key here is live audio rooms in Facebook and Messenger. Okay, and looking at the screenshot, we were taking a close look at the screenshot. It's practically a rip-off of Clubhouse. You've got the speaker section at the top, then you've got the front row, which is quite interesting. Then you've got followed by the speakers. I can see here that we've got some reactions. So somebody's received some stars, so they've got that interactivity there. And they've got fundraiser to provide free cab rides for the Asian community. So they've kind of like integrated donations within there as well. And they've got a whole page for rooms where you can kind of see what rooms are on right now. And you can also, use that space to create a room. Now, one thing Facebook's really good at doing is cloning. Okay? They are very good at doing that. We've seen that in the past. And this looks like even more so. I mean, obviously Twitter Spaces is still a clone of Clubhouse, let's be real here, but Facebook, they have no shame. They have zero shame. Okay, they just no they see a feature and they will rip it off to like the pixel and just not care whatsoever. All right, and that's what it seems like that they're doing on Clubhouse. Obviously they're adding some new features, so it's quite interesting, this front row feature, which I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work, but it kind of seems like maybe if there's people who have potentially maybe paid to be in the front row, maybe people who have raised their hand to maybe talk, and then you kind of push them to the front row or something like that. So there's a few things. You can already see that they've got reactions there with the stars, so that's quite good that they're going to integrate this straight away. So instead of having to tap the mic like a absolute fool on Clubhouse. But here's the thing. Couple of things. I've been on Clubhouse once in the past month. Okay, for me it's very much the buzz has started to die down. Now don't get me wrong, I still do go on occasionally and even on Twitter Spaces, but it's not got the same impact that it had a couple of months ago when everybody was in lockdown. Now lockdown's easing as well. What do you think? Is it too late, or is it still going to be something that's quite a significant feature for Facebook?
So, okay, I'll answer two sections of it. So there's the Facebook part, and it is not late at all for Facebook. And we kind of talked about this a little bit, and I said, Facebook, what we tend to forget, because a lot of us are not on Facebook constantly. We don't use Facebook as extensively as, say, Twitter or even Clubhouse. Like my usage of Clubhouse and Facebook was around the same, or even maybe Clubhouse more when I was using Clubhouse. Facebook has a lot of groups, a lot of big pages, and this is a way for those communities to continue to interact directly. Now, also, this is a great way for people to start off conversations with just your general Facebook friends. Forget the groups. So think of it in this scenario where something happens, right? There's something big that happens in the world. Somebody can literally start a room, and everyone on their timeline will see that, and they jump on. Forget all the monetizing aspect. But remember, Facebook is literally a community on its own. It is the world's biggest community on its own. So even if the usage of the usage of Facebook rooms or whatever it's going to be called, Clubhouse feature, is only 10%. Facebook is at what, 1 point something billion? A billion people on Facebook? It's fine. You've got a subsector that's already using it. Now they just have to figure ways to ramp it up and ramp it up and ramp it up. And that's all they did. And that's the genius of them cloning, is that they don't have to make it. It's like saying why there's so many Chinese phone manufacturers, because there are a billion people. You can't service them all. You just have to eat out a segment of the market, and it makes sense. And I like the fact that they've added features and they've added things to make it more exciting. It's similar to what they did in Facebook gaming, where they added so many features, and they saw one of the biggest growths during the pandemic because it was easy for you to just get on Facebook, hit stream, and start streaming. You don't have to join Twitch, you don't have to do anything else because everybody has a Facebook account, right? On the other hand, I don't want to say Clubhouse is dead, but I feel it is dead. And I feel that the rumored $4 billion that Twitter was offering them for buyout, they should have taken it, especially considering how small the team was. But I think they also bought into the sauce that flows around in Clubhouse. There's a certain sauce of this is what you should do in your dream, and a lot of pandering conversations that happens a lot around there, as opposed to what I've experienced now with Twitter Spaces. And I remember we said this, and it was like, Twitter Spaces will work and will, like, the only competitors moving forward, I believe, will be whatever Facebook does with Facebook and Instagram and Spaces. Spaces is great because every Friday, I literally just go, Fountain and Winter Soldier, let's talk, people. Spaces rooming in like an hour. People just jump on. I don't have to set a reminder or anything.
And your following is already there. And I think one of the things, there's a few key things that you mentioned there on Facebook is Facebook already has the communities built up. You already have your friend list that you've had from 2007 or whatever it is, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So you already have that network built there. And this is just going to give you another way to engage with them. As creators, the other thing that you're right, we forget, because I heard the statistic, I can't remember where it was from, but this was when PewDiePie was going to start streaming on Facebook, but it wasn't exclusive to Facebook. But one of the key things that one of the guys mentioned there is that only 20% of the people on that watch live streams on YouTube also watch on Facebook. So you've got 80% of the audience is brand new. It's new, it's different, right? And I also find this as well when I kind of post something on YouTube and then I post something on Facebook. It's a different audience, right? So there's different types of users who use Facebook and who use YouTube and who use Spaces. Now, Clubhouse still doesn't have an Android app, okay? So that's the first thing. You still have to build a community on there, which you don't really have, which some people like. Mind you, some people like actually building a new community, and the excitement and stuff is different. And there's been some early adopters on Clubhouse who have struck it big, and now that's their primary social platform. Because I've seen a lot of Clubhouse users who have loads of followers on Clubhouse. You go anywhere else and it's nothing. So their primary is Clubhouse. But then for content creators and people who are general users of Facebook and Twitter, right? It just makes sense for them to carry on using Facebook and Twitter rather than having to get this new app and start building everything from scratch again.
Here's what I see here. And so somebody said this best. I think it was even Viper. Viper was like, well, Clubhouse is where you're going to have conversations, and Spaces and on Instagram is where people like us who have audiences will go converse with our audiences. That is true. But I think the real conversation will be on Facebook itself. I think this feature will be huge for Facebook because this allows Facebook to transition from think about I'm not trying to bring politics into it, but think about the last 4 years with Trump and all the politics that happened in Facebook. This will literally take that to an audio space where you have to articulate what you say. You have to actually talk it out. No more just typing it out and saying, this is this and this is this and this is this, and that's your political view. When somebody says, okay, here's a room, come explain to me why that view is this, then it becomes, I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I'm saying that for Facebook, if I look at it from the way Facebook looks at things, Facebook does not look at things as good or bad. They look at it as what is beneficial to Facebook. And exactly. And for them, this creates a new environment that may also help Facebook in the long run because it literally may weed out people who do not know how to articulate a valid form or function, because now you're going to converse. Because it kind of reminds me of a friend who always gets into conversations with people about race, politics, and she articulates things, but people will just say one line and think they've won the argument. And I'm like, even I read it, I'm like, you just said nothing. So you put them in that room, then it becomes something else. Right? I think that's why I think Facebook is really excited about this, and that's why they didn't do the rollout like Twitter. They literally said we have a timeline, we're going to launch it, and then we're just going to go. And I think that's going to curb it. Yeah, exactly. Because all those people who were thinking of joining Clubhouse, who read it on Facebook, because I had so many friends who were like, "Yo, E, what's this Clubhouse thing? I know you're a techie, like, can you explain it?" And now they'd be like, "Oh, it's here on Facebook." Okay.
Club what? Club what? I don't know what this Clubhouse home. What is it? I don't know. I don't care. Yeah. I've got it on here. On my thing. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying RIP Clubhouse, but it is. I think it's still going to continue in its own respect, but it's going to be very, very small compared to some of these others, 100%. And just looking at usage patterns and like looking at some rooms that I've used to go on and now I've tried to go on and seeing how much the engagement on those rooms has dropped as well now on Clubhouse, it just goes to show that it's people are going back to their normal lives. The vaccines are rolling out. It's just not going to have the same growth or the same impact that it had initially, and especially with these other giants coming in, it's going to go very much in the shadows.
I'll put it this way: the Clubhouse feature, not Clubhouse, because it literally is a feature, is very beneficial for days of important news, whether it's entertainment, financial, political, geopolitical, racial, whatever it is, anything that's important news to discuss, that's what that feature is great for. The problem is, where's the audience for it? And that's why if you look at it, you go, Clubhouse doesn't have an audience, Twitter does, Facebook does, Instagram does, heck, even Discord does, because Discord is doing it, and LinkedIn LinkedIn is going to do that as well. And it makes sense on LinkedIn because you can talk about financial, business stuff there.
LinkedIn eventually do copy. They do it very late, but they do eventually get in there with the stories and everything that they do. So, exactly. I'm not gonna. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn as well, right? And honestly speaking, I find it as a professional outlet, like to get in touch with contacts, things. It's there, and it's great in terms of So there's a use for every, and I also see it working. And it will undoubtedly also come to LinkedIn. But I think it goes back to, this is something that I remember Marquez saying is Clubhouse an app or is it a feature? And I think, again, it comes back to the fact that it is a feature. It's not, it's not necessarily a standalone app. It's something that can be very easily implemented to existing apps and platforms where communities already are there. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Should have sold.
And that's all we have time for, guys. Thank you for tuning in and listening. If you are enjoying the podcast, do drop it a review. If you want to see the video version as well as clips, then be sure to follow on YouTube. We're at SuperSaf Speaks. Thanks for listening. This is Saf on SuperSaf Speaks with my co-host
Thunder E from Border Work. Got it right this time.
You got it this time. This is why you need coffee, my man. Anyway, we'll see you next time.